cat video, baby photo, Ooh, visual soundbite. I wonder what this podcast could be about. That's exactly what your potential listeners could be saying if you use visual sound bites on your social media. Visual sound bites are one of the best ways to share your podcast episodes on social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. In this video, you'll learn how to create visual sound bites and how to use them effectively. Podcasters, small and large, new and seasoned, are always looking for fresh ways to market their podcast. Enter audiograms. Podcast audio converted to engaging social videos, also known as visual sound bites, if you host your podcast on Buzzsprout, that is. Regardless of what you decide to call them, they serve a primary purpose, and that's to generate interest and buzz for your podcast episode by offering an interesting and engaging teaser of what a listener can expect. According to results published in an article by Delaney Simmons, the director of social media at WNYC, the average engagement for an audiogram on Twitter and their experience was 8 times higher than a non-audiogram tweet. And on Facebook, some of their shows are seeing audiograms outperform photos and links by 58% and 83% respectively. Those results make for a compelling case to leverage visual sound bites in your own social media marketing. Let's start by honing in on your intention and demographic, which will help you maximize your effectiveness. First and foremost, set an intention before you even start creating a visual soundbite. Consider if the soundbite would be used to educate somebody or to entertain people. Is the clip intended to be funny or inspiring? Or are you purposely looking to stir up interaction and conversation? There's no wrong answers, but let your intention guide the content you use for the soundbite. Your selected soundbite should not only entice people on social media to listen to the whole episode, but also build some sort of trust between them and your content. People are more likely to give your podcast a shot if they feel like the 30, 45, or 60-second soundbite you created was a valuable use of their time. You will also want to consider your audience. Obviously, the goal is to have your visual soundbite reach and engage as many people as possible, regardless of the platform you post it on. But factor in if you'll be posting the soundbite on your personal page or a dedicated podcast page. The demographic of your existing followers might differ between the two and could play a big role in what content might resonate with them. Once you've set your intention and locked in a demographic, it's time to decide what part of the audio you'll be isolating to share with the world. Now, you should have a good idea of what kind of podcast you offer and the branding you want to portray. I'll use my podcast as an example going forward. My show offers interview episodes with the occasional guest, an industry expert, as well as casual roundtable discussions with my co-hosts. So depending on the episode I'm promoting that week, the soundbite I create will differ. If I'm promoting an interview with a guest, I normally isolate a soundbite that spotlights them as an authority in their field, with an interesting fact they've shared on the episode, or a fun behind-the-scenes fact or story that is unique to their experience. The idea is that that soundbite would introduce the guest to potential listeners on social media, as well as their accomplishments and what makes them unique. I like to keep a pen and pencil by me when I record an interview, and I make note of interesting answers and stories shared by the guest that might make for good soundbite content. If you're a proactive planner and you write outlines for your episodes and interviews like I do, consider writing questions that would evoke responses worthy of isolating for a soundbite, but make sure you find ways to naturally work them in, so it doesn't sound so obvious or jarring to the flow of the actual conversation. Now, if I'm creating a soundbite for an episode with my co-hosts, that's where I aim to isolate an entertaining part of the conversation. Something juicy. I'm purposely looking for a highlight that's fun and feels inviting for anyone that might come across it on social media. You should want a potential listener to know there's a good time to be had listening to your podcast because you had a great time recording it. Just be careful of isolating a soundbite that's got too many voices going on at the same time or too much crosstalk between hosts. Focus on spotlighting a high point of the show, but also a segment that is clear, concise, and easy for somebody to follow along and get the gist of what's going on. Since these kinds of episodes are way more casual and can go on a lot longer than interview episodes, I personally practice taking note of timestamps worthy of sound bites while I'm editing. This way I can find and isolate them a lot easier when I'm creating the sound bites later on. Being proactive in the front end of your podcast and mindful of your soundbite strategy while you prep, record, and edit will save you so much time later on. Now, let's talk about how to create a soundbite. If you host your podcast on Buzzsprout, creating a visual soundbite is just one of the many free features included in your subscription. Here's how to create one. Step 1, go into your Buzzsprout dashboard and click on an episode and click the Create a Visual Soundbite from the sidebar on the episode page. You'll be taken to a page to create your soundbite. From here, you can set your start time and duration of the soundbite, as well as listen to the soundbite by clicking the preview button. When you're happy with the clip, click Sounds Good and continue. Next, you'll be taken to a page to customize the look of your soundbite. You can select the size, customize the colors, the background, and update the text. Once you're happy with the look of your soundbite, click Create My Soundbite. Buzzsprout will now create your video file and email you when it's ready to be downloaded. You'll be able to download the finished file from within your Buzzsprout account, but keep in mind, you can create additional soundbites, but you'll have to delete the old one and repeat the process. You might have a preference on what social media platforms to use, or maybe certain platforms just work better for your podcast. Just make sure that you've created a soundbite in the correct format for that platform. You can create a square soundbite, which is perfect for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter posts, or go with landscape if you're looking to use it for YouTube or a blog post on your website. And last but not least, there's my personal favorite, which is the portrait size, which is great for platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels. And I prefer to use eye-catching artwork because that never hurts when you're trying to grab the attention of people on social media. And I'll leave you with one final food for thought when it comes to effectively using visual soundbites. And that's have a strong hook in mind when you're creating one. After all, we are talking about social media here, and you've only got a short window to really grab the attention of a potential listener. I find that a soundbite that poses or raises a question with just the right amount of background context are some of my best performing soundbites, because it appeals to people's natural inclination for curiosity. My personal rule of thumb is that a soundbite should stand on its own. Whether that's sharing an interesting fact, a story, or posing a thought-provoking question, your soundbite should have a payoff and the promise of more to come in the full episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to learn more about creating a podcast visual soundbite, check out this video right here to learn how to share your podcast on social media using visual soundbites. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep podcasting. That's where I aim to isolate an entertaining part of the conversation, something juicy. I'm purposely something juicy. Juicy is such a funny word. Juicy fruit. Entertaining part of the conversation, something juicy. I'm purposely looking for a highlight that's fun and feels featuring just my co-host. That's where I aim to isolate an entertaining part of the conversation. Are you laughing before I even said it?